Hello viewers and listeners, the first section of the podcast is presented using the camera audio due to a processing error. After the first music break, the audio will be fixed. Thank you for watching and listening. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome back. Happy New Year. The Christmas episode didn't come out because I fucked it up. Just kidding, the audio fucked up, but that's okay. We are on location today at a new venue in Oshawa. I'm joined by the owner, mentor, friend, just a general good guy. And Maybee, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this. And also, just for any listeners, if you hear any banging or clanging going on in the background, it's because we are basically on a construction site at the moment.
That we are. There's a few crews on site right now, putting in the windows in the back and bricking up some windows actually on the side.
Oh, that's really great. So what part of the venue are we in right now?
Right now we are in the future restaurant. I guess you would call it the second and a half floor kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're facing west right now. If you zoom in, you can actually see the old patio of the Mustache Club back there.
Yeah, it's a weirdly dark kind of way to look at it. Yeah, that's very true.
It is true, yeah. You can see the Mustache Club, and then to the southwest is the Regicide Theater.
So and I wanted to sit down and talk with you because I think for the New Year first episode, I thought it makes sense to look at something more that's happening in the future, something that's in development, because 2020 kind of obviously was a shit show for a lot of people who you know, especially through the Boston area. Just to come here, check out what you're doing, learn what you're doing, but I kind of wanted to start with you specifically. So, what's your background? Because I've known you from, when are we, like 2016?
2015, 16?
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
somewhere like that. And like, what made you want to get into running a venue?
Well, it wasn't actually a dream. I was actually doing some repairs on the building at 39th King Street. And my history back in the day, I used to play a lot. I know the music industry. I ran a couple of discos and a few other places down south in the Caribbean. So when this opportunity came up, I asked my wife if we wanted to do it. She said no, but I already signed a lease, so here we go. Here we are. And so this is how it took place exactly. And so we ran the music hall over at 39th King Street for 4.5 years prior to the pandemic. And the building that we're sitting in today, I chased this building for a couple of years.
I remember.
Yeah, I came over here a couple times with a real estate agent, took a tour through here, and I was hoping for an opportunity to get to a larger place.
Yeah, you were talking about a larger place because a discussion we've always had was the venue size, and especially venue sizes in secondary markets, because we're so adjacent to Toronto, and Toronto has so many rooms of so many different sizes, it's difficult for you to get certain tours to come through, especially with like radio spot.
Absolutely. It all depends on the promoter and how fast shows sell out in Toronto, and there's a lot of dynamics to every tour that goes around. But it's nice, a band that tours Toronto all the time, it'd be nice for them to come out to the secondary market such as Oshawa, because they've been to Toronto so many times. It's nice for them to hit a fan base outside of the GTA, just outside the GTA, because a lot of Oshawa people, they won't go to Toronto because they want to drink at a concert, they can't drink and drive, and they can't afford the ticket plus the hotel room, plus or the train or whatever it is. And so having a venue of a capacity that we're hoping for will draw those bands, will put us on the map for the touring route for Canada, hopefully.
Yeah. So for previous listeners of the episode, I've had conversations about just the general scale of this venue, but like what is the scale going to be of this venue? So we're on the restaurant floor right now.
Yeah, so we're on the restaurant floor. Many people will remember this building as being the dungeon, home of the dungeon, the old dungeon. So a lot of bands in Durham region and a lot of bands across Canada have actually cut their teeth in the dungeon. And so we're going to revitalize the dungeon downstairs. That'll be somewhere between 350 and 500 capacity. And then we've got the main floor. We're hoping somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200.
And for the dungeon specifically, because you're going to get a lot of purists, especially like old school dungeon fans, and we saw the same thing with the Mustache Club when that closed down. All the people that were sanctioned there trying to find a new home.
Yeah.
What kind of things are you going to do to try and revitalize the dungeon? Are you going to keep it in the general same theme, or is it going to be something completely different?
Obviously, we're not going to use any of the names that were used in the past. We're not going to use the music hall name as well. We haven't put that out yet to the public. We're going to rebrand the whole building and the dungeon itself. It's going to be kind of your upcoming bands, local bands, your local scene. Just a little bit bigger place to play. There is only a few options in Oshawa now, and especially because of the pandemic, we had a few other bars closed down that people played with or played at. The only other location that local bands can play in right now is the Atrium, and it being a little small, a little tight. So at least when we have, between 350 and 500, when you get 300 people in there, at least 150, 200, it doesn't look like such a large room. Where the Atrium, don't get me wrong, a lot of bands have cut their teeth there, and there's been a lot of great bands that have toured through there. And the writing's on the wall, literally on the wall at the Atrium. But it's just not big enough for some of the bands that reach that 250, 300 mark before they hit that 5, 6, 1,000 cap room. The Atrium just doesn't have the capacity.
I think a huge issue that happened with Oshawa a few years back was, and even before that, it was the period when we still had Mustache Club open. And it was the Atria, and then Mustache Club, and then the music hall. And there was so basically, Mustache Club was 120-ish or something.
Yeah, somewhere in there, yeah.
And Atria is about 60-ish.
60-ish, yeah.
Yeah, so like you're going from a 60 to a 120 to a 600. Like there's not really a smooth transition.
Yeah, that was the problem with the old building that we were at. We found it was too large for the local scene, but yet not big enough for some of the bigger bands. It was great for some bands that were touring through, like the size of work. It worked great for a 500 cap room. We were 598 over in that room, so it worked perfectly. But we found, especially, you get a lot of great talent in Oshawa. They want to play, but a 500 cap room is it's just too big for them. They can't fill the room. They just don't have a big enough fan base. And so having this here, having the different floors, like the dungeon and having the main floor, it's a stepping stone for bands. They can aspire to play in the bigger room upstairs.
Yeah, and also on the off chance that a show in the basement oversells or there's huge demand support, and if the room upstairs is open, you can move it upstairs.
We can move it upstairs. I've talked to many agents around Canada right now and sent them the specs of the new room, the size and what we plan on doing, and they think it's fantastic that you have a room downstairs that people can start in, cut their teeth, and then they can graduate upstairs. And like you said, to touch base on that, if we sell, say for instance, we do a show, and we're only expecting to sell 300, 400. Next thing you know, they sell 700, 800 tickets. We can accommodate that.
Yeah, and that's why it's such a wonderful thing for Oshawa, because for the longest time, and I know I had this conversation with you, and I've said it in the podcast, same to you. Basically, like the Oshawa music scene goes through waves, and especially in the past few years, we've noticed a significant decline, not just like attendance, but just, I don't want to say quality of the artist, but just, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a band, like there's a couple bands that are really pushing right now, but like, I remember like, it was peaking at Crownlands, like there was a lot of good bands at that time, and everything just kind of like plateaued over that.
I think, like you said, there was a lot of bands that were out in the scene, hustle, but there's only so many places people can play, and I think the lack of playing drives the energy down. There wasn't like a regular scene. Once the Mustache Club closed down, I had so many people come to me and it's like, oh, isn't it great when the Mustache Club close down, and then you'll end up with more business. I'm like, no, you have no idea how the industry works. You think about it. If the Toronto Maple Leafs lose their minor team, their minor club, who are they going to draw from? Same with the Mustache Club. The Mustache Club was a great starting point, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great bands that went in there that have been on the scene for many, many years. But the Mustache Club was a stepping stone to reach to a 500 plateau, and then you go from there and you go to the Phoenix, and you go to the Danforth after that. So we were a great stepping stone, and we worked well together. Jacob and Nate that used to own the Mustache Club, actually we did business together. So some of the shows they presented at my space.
Yeah, and that's what the community needed, was that collaboration, and I think this venue will open the door not only for the Toronto industry and the international industry to take advantage of this room, because this room, the second you guys announced it, just blew up online. It blew up even bigger when everyone thought you were done. Because in that 4-year window, 4.5-year window that you guys were around, you made a significant impact on not only the Oshawa scene, but just the national scene as well.
I think when we announced our closure, we hit 185,000 people. I think that venues across Canada were realizing what was going on. They were sharing it amongst their communities, saying, look, it's already started. Venues are starting to collapse. My wife and I were smart enough to see the light. Unfortunately, we didn't have an opportunity to really work closely with our landlords. They were kind of like, either pay rent or, we're done here. So the writing was on the wall. We didn't want to fight for it because we knew that, it was going to be a year or so, if not 2 years before this pandemic could, go away. So we just didn't have the money to sustain that building.
And speaking on COVID and the pandemic and just the venues all over Canada, what do you think the long-term effects are? Because we're still in the midst of this pandemic and where it's going. We're still waiting for vaccines to come out and all that kind of stuff. Like, how much more damage do you think is going to come to the music industry?
Unfortunately, because, the music community is always the first one there to do a charity event, and we're the first one to close down in a situation like this. I think we're going to see a few more venues close down. Those that lease, that don't have good landlords, they're going to end up getting hit the hardest. They might as well just pack up now, save their money, and look after their families now. Because, let's face it, the vaccination, they're saying, late September before they get everybody vaccinated. The government never sticks to timelines. Let's face it, they'll fuck up everything. So, and they have so far. I think, JT has done a terrible job in this country looking after during the pandemic. So I think if we're lucky, we'll get Christmas next year. We'll be able to host some type of show and some type of, whether it be full capacity, half capacity, or whatever, we'll be able to get back to it. The vaccine has to be in place. The long-term effects of the vaccine has not been proven yet. And whether people can catch it again, whether it's going to be a third, fourth, fifth wave, we all don't know. We don't have a crystal ball.
Well, and I think the other issue is we're starting to see the variants pop up because UK is now having a variant of it, and you're also seeing it in Brazil and other parts of South America. And that's just more concerning because the vaccine they have may not be effective against that, but also like our vaccine isn't going to work overseas in the UK. They're going to have to do a variant there, and that just makes things a lot more complicated. So on the international scale, the music industry is fucked in general, to be blunt. And I really hope that we rise together, because I think what we also saw was a lot of people finding alternative methods to performing and doing shows like live streaming and stuff like that. What are some of your thoughts on the live streaming?
Well, the live streaming, and I've mentioned this in other interviews before, I think the live streaming is for here and now, but when live music will come back up, I think the live streaming you'll find will taper off quite a bit.
What do you mean by a bit, like percentage-wise?
Probably it'll lose 85% of its momentum.
Why is that?
Well, I think people that are music lovers, musicians follow musicians. Any crowd you go to, I guarantee it's 50 to 70% in the audience plays some form of instrument, or it could be just a shower singer, who knows, right? But they love music and they love seeing their favorite artist. Because let's face it, if you're a musician playing in your basement, you're not, if you're just, I hate to say a hack, but if you're just like a campfire guitar player, you're paying those that you admire the most. An opportunity to see them live is something different than seeing them on screen. I'm in the music industry, you're in the music industry, and I wouldn't spend money on watching streaming because my attention span is just not there. The energy and the atmosphere of the live streaming is just not the same as watching it, like seeing the color of the guy's shoelaces and watching him sweat on stage and how much effort they put into it. There's so much behind the scenes as well setting up for a show. It's exciting to me. Watching the show and how it's done. I'm more the mechanics of a whole show than I am watching the performance itself. How it's put together is my forte.
Yeah, that's something you and I fully understand, is that thrill of watching something you build from beginning to end. And something that you taught me way back when, because you've been a mentor of mine for years, is the real work is the before and after. The stuff in the middle you can't control.
That's right. Once the show starts, you have no control of it, so to speak. It's how you set the show up for the audience and for the band and for the singer and for everybody, from merch to coat check. That's how it determines how smoothly the show has been built. And when you don't see all those elements in a live stream, for me anyways, like you don't see all those moving parts, all those different faces. I'm a real people watcher, and there's nothing better than somebody who, as they're leaving, give me a big hug saying, Ed, I can't believe we had this show in this town. had the best time. I didn't have, I took an Uber here, $10 Uber, watched a great show and went home. And it's a good feeling. And I think that's why my wife and I, Maggie, are going to do this again, because it's hard to replace that type of feeling that you're helping somebody out. And it's a long-term memory. People are going to remember those moments for the rest of their lives.
And touching back on the response you have when you announced your closure, that's exactly why you guys received such a massive push from the online community and just people from all over Canada and all over the world, because they recognize authenticity in what you're doing. You're not doing this just for a cash grab, because, and especially the industry, so where's the money? But it's a passion, it's a labor of love, it's a passion of purpose. It's something that you guys are doing because you want to do it, and the community recognizes that and they appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the community, once we get going, and especially once the restaurant gets going, and get some people in through the building to get the feel of, maybe take a boo at the bigger room and see what we have going on in the future. And we don't mind opening up to the general public to see what's going on, because we value their input as well. Like, we'll probably, close in the near future, we'll probably put it out there, because we're looking to rename the building. We're going to put it out to the general public and ask them their opinion, what we think. We're not going to tell them the name we've already chosen, but maybe somebody has a better idea than what we have. And so, as I explained to you before, it takes a community to build an atmosphere like this. And so, why not involve the community in every aspect, from naming the place to everything that goes on in this building, how they're input in it. It makes people at the community feel part of the community. It's not like, here, I want your money just at the door. I want you to be part of this. I think that's how some live music venues created a legacy, because it becomes those people's, it's their cheers, where they come in here and it's kind of like, the people that volunteer in here, like yourself has been here, endless amount of people have volunteered their time, whether it be cleaning up, putting out garbage, help me tear down the ceiling in here, or do whatever. They're doing it, they're not asking for compensation, they just want to see it happen because they want to see the venue come alive.
And I think the community that you, Bill, and Maggie built, and our little team of people that we have and you have on call, because you mentioned the music hall scouting crew, which it really is. It's just a scout, a small collective of people getting involved in it. We're all here because we want to be here, and we enjoy being here. And we enjoy chasing that thrill that you talked about, like seeing the guy on stage sweating, the atmosphere, everyone there to have a good time. I mean, like atmosphere events like Emo Night, for example, where the mood is always electric and everyone's having a great time and we're all just partying. And I think that this venue, especially with the fact that it's in a building that has something as legendary as the dungeon in the basement where so many legacy bands have come through, having that almost like an aura about the place will make people really excited to come. People are already dying to come in. The amount of bands that reached out to me when you guys fucking announced
we've had so many bands reach out to us, from recording acts to the bands just down the street, and we've toured, local bands, some, like the Crownland Boys, the Standstills, 94.9 The Rock staff, we toured through here, some of the I Mother Earth Boys been here. There's been a lot of great bands that have, they've taken interest in it, not because they're like, oh, when can I get on stage? It's kind of like, I want to see it before you redevelop it, to kind of say, let's get a picture of me in here before it gets actually built again, and kind of like, let's just see what it looks like, you know what I mean, in the future. So, Leon from the Lazies has helped us out here. He spent a few days here with us, and he's actually one of the last pictures we've had in front of the dungeon sign before we actually took it down in the basement. He had that on his Facebook and all that stuff. So, there's a lot of people that have reached out here, not because it's like, oh my God, I can't wait to go there and get paid. It's like, I can't wait to go there because it's going to be a great spot for the community.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we often recognize. All right, so we're going to take our first music break right now. We're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Anchor, and then we'll move right back for part 2. See you in a few.
I've spent so many months wasting my time. Can't keep pretending that everything is fine. And everybody said we wouldn't last a week. You're everything to me. You're everything to me. No regrets. Can't you see to me your worlds apart? Don't forget, life's too short, it's written in the stars. No regret. We only get one chance to make it right. So just make the choice, and we can make forever start tonight. The most important time is right here, right now. Doesn't matter what the future holds, we'll work it out somehow. We can keep going round in circles no more. You're everything I'm sure. You're all I'm looking for. No regret. Can't you see to me your worlds apart? Don't forget, life's too short, it's written in the stars. No regret. We only get one chance to make it right. So just make the choice, we can make forever start tonight. We can make forever start tonight. We can keep going round in circles no more. You're everything, sure. You're all I'm living for. No regret. Can't you see to me your worlds apart? Don't forget, life's too short, it's written in the stars. No regrets. We only get one chance to make it right. So just make the choice, cause we can't wait forever. No regrets. Can't you see to me your worlds apart? Don't forget, life's too short, it's written in the stars. No regrets. We only get one chance to make it right. So just make the choice, and we can make forever start tonight. We can make forever start tonight.
All right, welcome back to part 2. Apologies for the audio issue. This shouldn't be an issue going forward. Ed, I want to talk to you about Oshawa in general. How has the city been reacting and working with the city on this kind of endeavor?
To be honest with you, we haven't really included the city per se in a like, we haven't called upon them for any favors or asked them for anything or anything like that. The response I'm getting, because you and I both know some councillors that work for the city. Derek Giberson being one, which is a singer of Professors of Funk, is a good friend of mine. So Sue Lupton, the city economic development lady. I've talked to Sue. I've known Sue from the past. So far, so good. They're telling me the vibe around the office is like, they're glad that we're doing something. But there is some of those that would, this project was slated to go as residential. And so they would have preferred the residential over the, live music venue.
Why do you think that is, though?
Tomato, tomato, I guess. I don't know, because I didn't personally talk to them. I only heard rumors of what they wanted. So the Sacco group that owns this building was slated to put 11 studio apartments in this building. They spent already $200,000 on drawings and permits and plans and everything else. And then once I closed the music hall down, their thought was, hey, we've always wanted to turn this into an entertainment facility. Maggie and Ed be great ones to run it. So they come and knocking on our door and say, how would you like to do what you're doing over there, but do it over here in a larger capacity? And oddly enough, I was chasing this building for a couple of years, and they knew that, and so a relationship was developed.
There's been a general positive vibe from the city and the community. Has there been any sort of negative backlash or anything like that you've dealt with directly or indirectly from this?
No, I can't say that. We got a few people that Facebook
keyboard bandits, whatever else, have mentioned a few things, just being smart asses, whatever. But for the most part, I would say 99% of everything's been positive thus far. As far as the city, the mayor's, reached out and said that, he's supporting us. Most city councilors obviously supporting us, at least the ones that I know of anyways. And I've heard rumors that a few of them are kind of like, him and Han about, maybe they should have done residential instead of a live music. Last thing we need is a bar or whatever. But they don't, those are the people that are not, they're not going to spend money on concert tickets. They don't know what it is really they're fighting against, or not fighting against, voicing opinion about. They have probably never stepped inside the music hall before and just whatever, right?
What do you think about the national response to COVID towards the music industry and live bars? Because there is that distinction that you just mentioned of government officials or just people who in general who don't understand the live industry, or just, it's not a bar. They don't look at it as a place for performers to develop, a place for concerts and that kind of stuff.
I think the government has dropped the ball on helping out live music venues. They dropped the ball because, like I said before, our earlier session, that we're the first to help out any cause in town. We're the first ones to shut down. The government offered some financial assistance, but it was kind of like, hey, how would you like to take a loan and get into more debt? So it wasn't a solution. Unfortunately, because the pandemic, the volume of money that the government is going through, I understand where they're coming from. As a business sense, it's kind of like, the entertainment sector or a bar is just not needed. It's not needed. It's a want, not a need. So they kind of let it go. And those that are going to survive, well, we'll reap the benefits. I hate to say it, because we're going to cover the shortfall of every other venue that is closed down. There's going to be such a high demand for space to do live music that we'll end up being busy. But going back to your point about the government and what they're doing, and the strong sense of, in my opinion, that the government has let us down. Look at Cherry Cola's in Toronto doing a fundraiser, and that place is iconic. It's been around forever and a day. For them to have to reach out, obviously there wasn't a great deal of money made in the past, otherwise they wouldn't be reaching out looking for money. So it goes to show and prove our point that this industry is not lucrative to the point where, hey, if they shut down for a year, they're going to survive. But somebody like Cherry Cola's and a few other places, they're reaching out looking for money, getting extra mortgages and stuff like that. I know a lot of music venue owners, and they're like, gee, if this goes past 2021, I'm done. And they've owned the building for 30 years. So because property taxes still got to be paid, and they're not cheap in Toronto. So we're fortunate enough that the Saco Group has stepped up and said, come hell or high water, we're going to get this project done. So I feel blessed in that way.
And so you mentioned, obviously, in the first part, we're going to be losing a lot of venues and all those kinds of things. I'm really just curious about the sociological impact on the communities. How do you think communities are going to respond to losing venues in their area? Because Oshawa's gone through a change, but now we're about to go through another change in which we're getting a bunch of venues all at once. So what do you think about that kind of aspect?
Well, the community, it's, I've watched many venues close down over a lifetime. We all have. Come and go, come and go, come and go. But during a pandemic, I think people get their back up because they know that the landlord is not working with them. But we all have our own numbers. We don't know the landlord's closing them down because I don't know if he's got a mortgage on the place and he just needs to pay for it, or putting the pressure on, or doesn't really care. I don't know. I'm not on that side of the fence. I don't talk to these landlords personally. But if it is the case where they own the building outright and it's just taxes they need or something like that, I find it very selfish on their behalf, because who are they going to rent it out to? You kick somebody out, who are you going to rent it to? There's nobody else doing live music. You're better to hold on and just let the people stay there. Lock the doors if you want, so they can't, they can't go in, or whatever the case may be, is whatever satisfies your needs. But don't just kick them out, put them on the street and say, well, there's another venue lost, and I'll rent it out to somebody else in the future. I don't think it's a good way to operate. I think, what comes around goes around, and when that person's going to turn around and look for help from somebody, and people are just going to say, piss on you. Look what you did to our local pub, our local music scene. You shit on them, why should we help you?
What do you think is an idealistic scenario for getting things back going the correct route for live music and getting it back?
Well, obviously, the vaccination is going to take such a huge role on everybody's life, not just live music, travel, kids going to school, everything. So I don't think right now is the proper time to kind of respond to kind of like what's going to help and what's not going to help. What's done is done. The damage that has already taken place in the music industry is done. We can't undo what's been done. So we can only look forward, do our best moving forward right now. Hopefully those with deep pockets will come out of the woodwork and help out some of the venues in their local community to kind of like, hey, even if you want to make a blind donation to somebody, whether it be a community theater or whatever the case may be, you know what I mean? It doesn't always need to be a lot of money, it takes nothing to ask somebody to say, hey, how are you guys doing? You're going to survive through this? How are you looking for the future? If things don't open up again until next December, next January, are you going to survive? I'm hoping that people with deep pockets that love the music industry will contact some of these venues and say, hey, is there any way I can help you guys? Because I think a lot of business owners, and it's like anybody in life, no matter what business you own, you got a lot of pride. You don't want to ask some stranger for money or do a fundraiser or, somebody to think you're weak, oh, this business is going to go under, whatever. I think people with deep pockets, I hope that they have, not to say they have the responsibility, but hopefully they have the courage and to go out there and say, hey, can I help you out in some way, shape, or form? Or somebody from the community maybe would run a fundraiser for that venue because they personally know the owner, know that they're struggling, but don't want to ask for help. Because there's a lot of them out there, like a lot of band members, like these bands that are just started to make it, that don't have full-time jobs, we're relying on live music gigs. What do they do now? Because it's not like there's a lot of jobs out there you can just jump into. Everybody's cutting back, stores are closed, everything else. So what do? They collect their CERB or whatever it is. That's fine, but from my understanding, it was qualified for 1 year, you can collect 6 months of it. What do we do for the other 6 months, 7, 8 months, a year? The government's going to have to come up with another solution. We've all hoped that this was going to be a 2-week, a 1 month, 6 month thing, but realistically now, you're looking at, we're going to come into 2 years. Realistically, for our industry, you're going to see 2 years of people being flat right out on their face, earning no money whatsoever. I think, and I'm hoping that so many players have played, I think we're going to find more bands come out of this in the future because I think so many people are playing music at home right now. What else is there to do? You can't travel. You're not supposed to travel. You can't even go ice skating. You can't go tobogganing. You can't do nothing. So I would imagine the places like Long McQuaid and local store like Headstock and all that around here are probably selling more musical gear now than they ever have. I see a lot of stuff online. I think a lot of people are going to come out of the woodwork and a lot of bands are going to revitalize themselves and come back out and play. Because now that you haven't, it's one thing to be a musician and keep playing. I wouldn't say you get bored of it, but it's kind of the same old thing all the time. You kind of step back and you stay away from it for a while. Now that everybody's been away from it it's going to be 2 years, I think the hunger is going to be there and people are going to come out swinging. And looking forward to, we're looking forward to opening back up for those people again. Like, we've had probably 300 bands reach out to us, kind of like, hey, when you guys open up, I'm there for you. Whether it's I'll do a free show, I'll do anything, any construction work you need help, cleaning, do whatever. We're there. We want you to open, and because we want the opportunity to play, and we want to be there for you. So that speaks volumes for people that I don't even know, to message us and say, hey, what do you guys need? I will help you. And I don't know these people. My wife doesn't know these people. Whether they visited the music hall in the past or not, I don't know. Like, I have to go back on, check their names, their tickets, and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I know they've been around the industry. They've been at the music hall. They're friends of yours. They're friends of the radio station. They're friends of everybody. And now they're reaching out and saying, hey, I want to help. I think that says volume for the community that we live in. A lot of people, they were dissing the downtown Oshawa. We all have our opinions of what's going on downtown Oshawa. A lot of strong opinions. I don't publicly state what I feel the downtown Oshawa right now, the state that it's in.
Yeah.
I think it's on a revitalization period right now with what Alexis is doing there on the corner of Bond and Simcoe Street at the old Royal Bank building. Kyle from Brew Wizards, what he's doing. It's glad to see that Dino's staying alive at the Atria, and obviously the Regent Theatre will come back to life anyways, owned by the school. So I think the new blood that's coming in downtown with Alexis, ourselves, and who else? I heard that somebody's purchased or is leasing out the Mustache Club and coming in the future.
The signs are taken down.
It's going to be like a nightclub kind of thing, whatever. So, you know, I think there's an opportunity for Oshawa downtown entertainment-wise to kind of be revitalized. And I really hope that, you know, these people that are trying to do things, they come to life.
So you believe then that once it's safe to do so, there is going to be some sort of live renaissance, resurgence kind of period in which people are going to be going to shows and like wanting to be here?
There's going to be those that obviously they're going to be skepticism about, you know, I'm not going to go out there because the chance of catching COVID again or catching it for the first time or whatever. You always get those people. And no matter what you do in life, you get both sides of the fence. And that's okay. And people want to stay home to be safe, that's fine. Eventually, once the model is proven that the vaccination works and people are safe again, and, you know, they'll come back. They will come back. Everybody always comes back. You always return home, so to speak, right? So I think once the vaccination gets proven, you'll see everybody come back out to live music again.
Not to play devil's advocate, but something that I've really started thinking about recently, because this past year has just been a lot of thinking about where things can go and like trying to plan for the future as best as we can. Have you thought about the other side of the coin economically, in which while there is going to be a demand for live music and like a resurgence of it and all this kind of stuff, do you think there's a possibility that not as many people as you think are going to go out to live shows because they're so far in debt, or they have to pay back CERB, or they just don't have the money to support live music like they used to?
That's a great point. That's just a coin toss on our behalf. We don't know. Let's face it, there's a lot of people out there that are still working. More millionaires have been created in the pandemic and then the last 10 years in any, you know, economic years have gone by. So there is people out there with money. There is people that have disposable income. You're right. There's going to be those that are going to suffer, and, you know, eventually they'll get back on their feet. You know, mankind has always found a way to evolve, and those that are suffering now will, you know, they'll find a job and things will happen. Will we open the doors and it'll be gangbusters and a lineup all the way down the street? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm hoping so. We're all hoping so. We're hoping so. Because let's face it, to open up a live music venue during a pandemic with a restaurant and potentially a rooftop patio is crazy. Who would do that? The business model doesn't make sense. Like, if you were asked anybody that is a multimillionaire that makes money all the time, should I open up a live venue in a restaurant? And they'd be asking me, are you crazy? Like, don't even talk to me about that. But if we don't put the effort into it, it won't be here when the time comes. So we are putting in a lot of time. As you can see, I'm in my work clothes right now. We're freezing to death, and my breath is probably showing right now.
Yep.
It's cold in here. There's no heating here. So we're doing this, obviously. You know, yourself doing this interview with me is because of the love of what you do, the love of music, and I do it in myself. And Terry Code's downstairs working right now. He's been here pretty much every single day I've been here. The window company's here putting in windows downstairs in the cold. Electricians were just here hooking up furnaces for us and all that kind of stuff for the future. So for something that may or may not happen in the near future, but it will happen. As long as we keep working and pushing forward, it's going to happen. And let's face it, every event in history, mankind has always pushed forward. Humans are builders. We're people that like to reinvent the wheel all the time and keep pushing forward. And I think, you know, to touch base on you saying that, you know, there's a lot of people that are going to be out of work and all that stuff. Yes, they are. A lot of people are suffering. A lot of friends of mine, family, my kids, for instance, that are, you know, that young age, young professionals that can't find good jobs right now. They're all suffering as well. But I think once the economy comes around, once the vaccination, the economy will come back around. I can't see why it wouldn't. There's going to be everything has changed, from grocery shopping to buying shorts on, shorts off the shelf and everything. I think a lot of people that would never touch e-commerce before have now kind of realized, why didn't I do this before? So there is going to be that change. There's going to be a swing. But I think when it comes to live music is like one of those things, like, it's like trying to replace sex. You just can't do it. You can't replace live music. Live music is, there's something about it. And if you're a musician, there's something about music. It's, if you love music, love to sit around a campfire, love to go to a show, or just hear somebody on a street corner, busking or something, like, it's in your blood. And once this comes back, I think it'll come back with Resurgence. Like, it'll be, when we open up the basement, the old dungeon space, like you spoke before, the emo nights, we started rocking and rolling with the 80s and 90s night, the video dance parties. Yep. That stuff was all going very well for us. And I think people are missing it. We see the comments all the time. We get personal messages, people saying, hey, I can't wait till this comes back. I love it. By the way, I lost my coat. You guys still have it. We still get those comments. Like, we get the craziest questions, you know what I mean? Kind of like, when we took the sign down, I hope you guys put that back up. It's hard to believe that people still follow us over all this time, kind of like still poke their nose in, kind of like, oh, I can't wait. It looks good. The windows look good. You guys did a great job before. You'll be 10 times better now because it's a bigger space. And, it's going to come around. It'll come around.
I agree with that. I wanted to get your thoughts on Live Nation. Ticketmaster recently announced the check for vaccination status. What do you think of that kind of model for live shows, and have you thought of implementing something along those lines similar to when you open back up?
I myself am not going to worry about that right now, because let's face it, it's all going to be government guidelines that's going to dictate what we got to do. Because I myself, I don't really want to get the vaccination if I don't have to. But because I'm a frequent flyer, I love to vacation. I love my wife in a snowmobile suit, but I prefer in a bikini. So I like to go south. If I have to get a vaccination to get on a plane, then I'm going to get it done. If they say large crowds over 100 people, everybody has to be vaccinated, and you got to be proof of vaccination. That's going to be a transition that's going to take place for maybe a year or so after the vaccination all gets implemented. And then I think you'll see, it's just like, getting your polio shot and all this other stuff. Once everybody gets it, we got it, and then it all just kind of fade away.
Yeah. And something else I want to touch on was the bands and all the other artists that have reached out and tried. And because you mentioned, like, this is the time for artists to, like, be at home and create and stuff like that. And I also think it's also a time where artists can really work on the social media strategies and create an online presence, but also figure out how to market themselves properly, because an issue with a lot of those bands is they don't know how to do that kind of thing properly and to the fullest extent, but they can now use this time to actually come up with a plan. Following into that, I wanted to ask you, because obviously there is going to be some sort of live resurgence, people wanting to go back out to shows again. I know it's going to be better for you, obviously, because you're going to have a lot more people wanting to fill up the calendar, which hopefully means more foot traffic. What do you think about the fact that there is also going to be a period where the bigger guys like Live Nation on the bigger agencies are going to have the monopolies on these rooms, but the more local-ish level artists are going to have a more difficult time trying to get in and breaking and grind their teeth and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think, and to touch base on like the Live Nations, the MRGs of the world, they've already reached out to us, and not to say who the bands are, but there's already tours in plan, like en route already for the future, and we've already got calendars starting to fill up and stuff like that. Nothing obviously publicly announced because we don't know, but it's like, if this could happen, let's see if the date is free. I don't think there's going to be a problem. If anything, with maybe so many shows, I think it's going to be tough. We're going to have to strategically plan what shows we do present right away, because I can't do like all rock, because that crowd don't have this disposable money for 5 rock shows a month or something like that. So in saying that, I think that the bands now will have more of an opportunity, maybe use some more local content for openers. It'd be smart on some of the, if we are having a hard time selling tickets because people are afraid to buy a ticket to get into a crowd, use local talent to help them push the influence of the show to bring more people out and help support. I'm hoping that when the Canadian bands that we normally have in Oshawa come around, and then we'll have some new bands come in, whether it be the Headstones or the Trues or Big Sugar, Big Wreck, or, you know, all those bands that we have on a regular basis, and they all sell out. Let's hope that, you know, they start looking at maybe we should start involving the local community as far as openers. But it's hard, as you and I know, Matt, you know, when you're doing a tour, you kind of want to have the same band touring with you. It's all about routine, and routine makes a show go over well, like from the lighting to stage plot to everything, right? So it's hard to bring in a local band, but maybe that's where we come in with a local band that is a third, is a starter, you know what I mean? Opens up when the doors open or something like that, to get the local bands on the scene again. I don't know, that's going to be something that's going to be a conversation I'm going to have with tour managers and promotion companies and so forth and so on. But I think going forward with Live Nation, they might be jumping the gun a little bit, saying that you got to have a vaccination before you can get into a show. We don't know. We all don't even know if we don't even know if you get the vaccination, whether you can catch COVID again or not. Like, nobody knows anything. So to say, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, it's too early. It's way too early. It's jumping the gun, in my opinion. You know, I would imagine the government and the scientists around the country and all that stuff obviously know more than us. That's why they're in those positions. Maybe they have the foresight of they know what's going on. But let's just say, for what we know, what I see on CP24 and national news in the evening time, this ain't going away anytime soon, and we're all just in this together. I hate that saying, but we're in this together, but we're not in this together. Everybody has their own deal. Everybody has their own financial commitment to whatever. We can just hope that we can all pull through this together, and we can all get back on track.
I could not agree more. All right, so we're going to take our final music break right now, and another word from our sponsor, Anchor, and then we'll be back to finish up in part 3. See you in a few.
The cage, we out for blood, craving with disdain. I don't care and I can't forgive your secret when the break was in. I read the rules straight off the page. This game will give us the chance we take. Hesitation, a deadly sin. What the fuck you say when you see the king? Yeah, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. It's not fair, it's not fair for you. Now this is my time, now this is my time. I'm not scared.
All right, welcome back to part 3. Thank you to Anchor once again for sponsoring this episode. Ed, to wrap things up, I kind of want to pick your brain because you're an entrepreneurial that I've admired. You have your hand in a bunch of different pots. You run a bunch of different things. Take it from beginning to end for someone who wants to consider opening a venue. Like, let's ignore the COVID shit for a moment.
Run fast. Somebody that wants to open a venue. Somebody that wants to dabble into live music.
Yeah, like what are some of the different aspects like to consider and just things to know?
You got to consider your community that you're in. I wouldn't recommend a live music venue in Nestleton, Ontario. You know what I mean? You got to look at the demographics of what you have surrounding you. It's nice having a university local to us with a large population for the live music, and they have a music program there as well. I would look at the demographics, look at the space you'd need. You need to be, the reason why we pick it, everybody says, why would you go downtown Oshawa? Why would you pick a building? There's got to be lots of buildings, industrial units or something. I said it all comes down to the AGCO. Because if you're downtown, you can utilize all the P parking. If you're outside of the downtown, you got to have parking for yourself. So I don't have enough land. I don't have enough money to buy a place or get a place big enough to hold 1,000 people and 1,000 parking spots. Because you got to assume that every person coming in could drive, right? So you need parking. So that's why we stick to the downtown core to utilize the parking. So it keeps people happy, like AGCO. We have all kinds of parking. You got to look at the bus routes and everything else, because some people travel on the bus, community transportation. You got to look at your cabs and your Ubers and all that kind of stuff, whether Uber is offered into your community. All that safety aspect of people getting home is a huge part of it all. Food and entertainment downtown. Is your live music venue going to have a restaurant? If not, can people come and eat? Can people leave the venue and go eat somewhere? Is there something for people to do other than just go to the music venue? There's a lot of factors involved in opening up a venue. What kind of culture is in your local neighborhood? Would live music, would it be rock? Would it be country? Do you keep it kind of versatile like we do? Kind of like it's an open slate for us. We're not prejudiced against any genre. We'll put a show on. It doesn't matter if it's rap, country, rock, whatever. We like to feed everybody's appetite. So what I would recommend, obviously, in is budget. What can you afford? You got to do your due diligence on your costs, your hard costs, your operating costs, your staffing, how many people you're going to get work there, how many volunteers you're going to get to help you out. Because trust me, when you're opening up a live music venue, if you don't have deep pockets, you're going to realize how fast a business can fail, because it's all about money. It's like any other business. If you don't have the capital, it's not going to work. We've been fortunate enough in our business, we didn't have the greatest capital when we started, but the momentum, because we opened up, and I guess we're good people, and people came out, and it helped keep it afloat. Did we have bad times? Oh, absolutely. We were stealing from Peter to pay Paul all the time for the first little while. Your first couple of years, until you develop a reputation, and good luck on getting some recording artists until you have that reputation. Agencies are not going to give you, recording acts. You got to have a great sound guy behind you. You got to have what we call the guy. You need a guy, a good technical guy that can look after everything. We were fortunate enough through the years that we had a lot of help. We had Johnny Matuziak helped us out. We had Nate Beatty. We have Jacob from the Mustache Club, Junior. We've had a bunch of people that, and a lot of touring sound guys come in and make suggestions, and we've implemented things. There's a lot of moving parts. My recommendation is, if you don't have a musical background, don't try to open up a musical venue, because to start fresh, it'd be too hard. It'd be very difficult for somebody to survive. You can't rely on alcohol, because now with marijuana being legalized, you got to think that's going to factor in on people's spending when they come to a show. Because before, people would drink, if you can get $20 out of a person in alcohol sales, you're doing well. Now if they only sip one beer just to have it in their hand, is kind of like it's like having a smoke in your hand. It's like habit. So a lot of people don't drink anymore. There's a lot more. A venue nowadays is not like what it used to be. When I was younger, full of piss and vinegar, we'd go out, we'd blow $100 at the bar, jump into a cab, and go to an after party. Nowadays, you don't do that anymore. Number one, I'm too old to do that anymore. Number two, people just don't do what they did back in the day. To have a few beers socially is a great thing. People don't come to a music venue. Don't get me wrong. You do get the ones that, overindulge. And you try to control that the best you can. But for the most part, people don't go out and get plastered anymore. They don't get all strung out and all that kind of stuff. It's not the same. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It happens. But it's in how you control it and how your staff look after it and how we make sure they get home safely. To open up a music venue. Would I do this again? At my age, no, I don't think I would tackle this again. I got probably a 10-year run here kind of thing. That's my vision. And then I'm going to pass the torch off maybe to a family member or somebody else in the community that has the same passion like myself. There's not too many of us out there that are willing to work for free. It's a hard business because it's a labor of love for sure. You don't do it because you're going to get rich tomorrow. You do it because you enjoy the shows, and it's great to see. We do the School of Rock here. We did it over the music hall. We'll do it here as well. Every year we do 2 or 3 recitals with them, the kids that join music programs, and it's really awesome to see the kids come in here and they take pictures of, on stage of some of the bands they've watched YouTube videos of, or they've been on the stage, and it's a good feeling to help the community and help out families and starting musicians out to let them get on stage. It's like, hey, break out of your bubble, get out of your comfort zone, get on stage and let her go. And I've seen some of the most amazing people that if I saw them on the street, be like, you would never think they were a singer or a guitar player or something. Next thing you know, they're getting up there shredding it and hitting the high notes. It's kind of like, where did you come from? Like, you know what I mean? They've always been a closet musician, playing in their bedrooms or in the shower, singing or whatever. We give them an opportunity. Like, listen, don't be shy. Get up there. We all do it. We all got to start somewhere. Like, there's more failed musicians than there are successful musicians. So, to start a venue, it's scary. Like, it's not something that, hey, I'm going to open the doors and it's going to flood the gates. It's a hard thing to do. We got a new venue opening up. Somebody took over 39 King Street, where I came from, Julius, over at the Biltmore. How he's going to do it, I don't know. Like, I know his daughter has a background running an old music venue in town. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he would think that opening up a new live music venue downtown, just buying the building and open the doors, people are going to come. They're not going to come. The reason why we're opening this venue here, and the only reason why we're opening it, is because we have great momentum from another location. And we're staying only 1 block north of where we were before. So, and there's a lot of new construction going on downtown, a lot of high rises and all that kind of stuff. So we feel that we have the demographics around us, surrounding us, that will help fill the building. Would I do it in a strange city, like just out of the blue, pick a building and open up? No, I wouldn't do it personally. I would have to come from that community, understand the demographics, understand everything about it. It's a tough go. It's a really tough go. If it wasn't said, like I said, the community and the people coming in, supporting us all the time, we wouldn't be doing this. I come from a corporate world, and to drop the corporate world to do this, people think I'm crazy. But then after I did it and started running the music hall, they're like, "Don't ever close this down. You got something that is fantastic." Like, so because of those people and because we, the community's reached out and so many people they've touched our hearts as well as we've touched theirs. And so for us to put our family money, myself, my wife, and whatever money online, because when you buy a show, it's a lotto ticket. You don't know whether that show is going to sell out or not. You don't know if you're going to make your return. It is a poor business model. And anybody that is in finance will tell you, you're nuts. You shouldn't do this. It's a high risk, low return, and a lot of days, no sleep. You finish a show at 11, 12 o'clock at night. The day doesn't end there. You still got to load out. You still got to clean up. You still got to stock the bar again. The next day, you got to clean up some more because you got to fix that toilet that somebody thought, hey, I'm going to stand on this and look in the mirror. You got to fix that toilet. You got to, and load in the next band. And the way you go again. And if you're only a small mom and pop shop where you don't have a big large staff, you're just a family operated business, it's all on you to get it all done. So it's not just, it's easy to say, oh, I, bought the trues and I'm bringing them in. It's not as easy as that. You got months of planning, you got radio support you need, you got advertising you got to go on through, and it goes on forever and ever and ever. People that show up and only sit there for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, watch a show and think, oh, that was easy. Because I've heard people say, oh, you should get this other band, you should get this band. It's kind of like, I just can't grab bands. Bands just don't call me up and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I would like to play there. Celine Dion ain't calling the music hall in Oshawa to say, hey, I want to perform. Elton John ain't calling the music hall. So it's we have to dig, and we've been lucky enough to create relationships with like APA, Feltman, Agency, Paquin, and a few small individual independent guys and stuff like that they love working with us and we love working with them, and we always come up with a compromise and we get the job done. But just to open up a business, to touch back, it's a hard go, but it's very rewarding when it's successful. Like I said, we operated for the first 2 years in the negative. And when we closed the doors, we were just starting to see the light. Like, it was starting to look pretty good to make it worthwhile. And then we closed the doors, and now we're starting all back over again.
I think there's a couple things I want to touch on with that. I think what people need to understand, that the reason why I asked you that question is because a lot of people who like watch this or listen to this show, like, they don't really fully grasp what it is for a venue side at a show. Because it's like you said, they're there 2.5, 3 hours and they see a show and they leave. But there is so much more to it. There's the amount of times I went to the venue and I see you sleeping on the couch because you've been there for the past 36 hours after a long show, and it's like a back-to-back weekend. True. So the effort that you've put into the music hall and the effort that's already been put into here and just everything going forward, it's going to be phenomenal. I'm very excited to see it. The last thing I want to talk to you about was, obviously you mentioned, and we've talked about it on and off camera, just the amount of bands and just local artists and stuff like that have reached out to you trying to get into either your old room or this room now. What would you give to those artists that are trying to get their name out there and get into these venues and get on the bigger shows with the bigger acts? It's a big question.
That is a tough question. I don't want to be saying, well, first of all, you got to be good enough, and don't kid yourself. Like, music in live shows, it's a business first and foremost. If you want to get on a show and tour with a band, first of all, are you a fit? Second of all, are you good enough? Is your band, how tight is your band? Third of all, can you sell tickets? Like, as sad as it may sound, the music world is a business. From, your licensing fees, right, to paying the band, to paying the opener, to rider, to whatever. What I would recommend to them is, get their act together. Take it seriously. Like, put together video clips of you playing, a Spotify list, a playlist of some sort. Don't be afraid to ask more than once, just because you missed one show. And don't expect that the venue has any pull whatsoever for a show, because it's not the case. A venue has very little say on who goes on the stage with the artist. Let's face it. Unless I'm friends or the show's not selling well or something like that, whatever, the venue doesn't have a say. If Jeff Martin comes into town and he wants to bring a band with him, I'm not going to say no because Jeff Martin said yes. Like, it's Jeff Martin's show. I'm paying for Jeff Martin. He's bringing in his support group. And that's the way it works. For bands to say that, I've heard people comment before, like, oh, they have their favorites or whatever the case may be. They always play the same, they always have the same band open or whatever the case may be. Well, that's because, number one, the band is maybe on the cuff of maybe breaking out, and we want to make sure we showcase them. They can be signed, but not really on a label or anything yet. There's a lot of factors. And number one is, if they're being played all the time, is because they have a draw. They sell tickets. Sadly enough, like I said, music is a business, and not everybody gets to play all the time. It's because we got to make money. Like, the lights, the hydro's got to be paid. The staff got to get paid. So if we can't sell tickets with one band, we got to go to another band. So my recommendation to a band, as we said, from the start to finish, make sure you're a good band. You're tight. You got your shit together. You know what I mean? You have all the equipment you need. It's not like you can't walk into a venue and say, oh, I don't have this. Do you have that? No, you're organized. You have everything you need. You know, and like I said, and personality is everything. Don't walk in there like you're all high and mighty and whatever. Just go in there and just be cool and calm. And like I know that a lot of bands even the big bands get nervous in a big crowd until they get into the groove and they feel it. You know what I mean? It's a feeling inside of them when they're playing on stage. You know, you yourself, Matt, I had you play. You opened for Adam Conche. You know, that must have been rewarding but terrifying at the same time to step on stage.
I mean, the day of, I was pretty shaky.
You know what I mean? You get the jitters, you know, like myself, I run the venue. I get the jitters when I walk on stage just to introduce somebody or something like that. I get a little bit of a jitters, kind of like, oh my God, there's 700 people here. You know what I mean? They all, you know, all the eyes on me for just that one glimpse of a second. So we've had so many opening bands come through here as supporting bands, and they've been so good. The well of musicians and bands, not only in Oshawa, but in Canada in general. From Montreal to Toronto to Winnipeg and Vancouver, we've seen a lot of bands touring through. The well is so deep. There's so much talent out there. I can't explain why one band excels over another sometimes, because sometimes I get an opening band, and I hate to say it, but they're better than the headliner that I paid for. And it happens. But all I can say for the band is the day you quit is the day the system beat you. You keep going. You keep going. You got to put your time in. You're not going to make money today, but you'll maybe make money tomorrow. Every band says, oh, I'm not in it for the money. Well, if you're not in it for the money, you're not going to go far, because that money is going to pay for new gear. It's going to pay for, you know, that van that tours you guys around in is going to pay for hotels. And so you got to get paid. And so if you want to become a touring band, that's what you got to do. You got to get in the ditches and do your time like everybody else. No different than a hockey player, no different than a basketball player. You got to do your time. And I think every musician out there, I think would tell you the same thing. It's like, you know, Adam Gonche didn't become Adam Gonche right off the bat. He was always Adam Gonche, but he wasn't a singer of 3 Days Grace because he decided to step on the scene and like, oh, I'm going to be the singer of 3 Days Grace. No. How many basements and how many grungy bars and how many, you know, shitty pieces of equipment did he play with and everything else before they became who they became? No different than Sub 41, Billy Talent, everybody. They all put their time in. Strumbellas we had here, and then, you know, they blew up in Italy, and you know, we had them at the music hall, and you know, they're keyboard players from Oshawa, and how many times did I see him in town before he was considered a Strumbella, you know? So you got to make yourself available and out there and play and play and play and play and then play some more. And unfortunately, some of those songs that they hate playing, well, if they're a fan favorite, then play it again. Like, you just keep playing. Like, how many times, like, I always ask a band, one question I asked a band, I said, you know, you sold out. I don't want to mention the band because I know him personally, and he'll phone me up and if he sees this and yell at me. How come you guys didn't do a second show? He goes, because we're old and we're lazy. We didn't want to make up another second list, another playlist.
I think I know who you're talking about.
We don't want to play again because we got to make up a whole new playlist, and we're only rehearsing the one set list. So we didn't have two set lists, so we didn't do a second show. And I was like, that is just plain laziness. But I get it, though. When you're doing 30, 40 shows across Canada and you don't want to do a second show because, you know, even though it's a sold-out market, you can do it again, it would be... it'd be difficult to do. To me, it's easy. Hey, your gear's already on stage. Just leave it there, lock the door. We'll mop up around the spills, and then we'll do another show the next night. But, you know, artists are performers first and foremost. They're here for entertainment. They can't do the same show twice in the same neighborhood. They got to do it, you know, a different show. And, you know, I see, like, when at the Phoenix there, was it last year, the year before, whatever it was, when Glorious Sons did like 4 or 5 shows in a row.
That was a couple years back.
I didn't go to any of them. I was invited, but I didn't go to any of them, and I was hoping that they wouldn't do 4 or 5 shows because I was hoping to get them back at my place, but I was just wondering if they did the same set list over and over and over again, or they just, you know, some artists like Glorious Sons, they're so multi-talented, they have a basket full of songs they can just pick up and say, okay, let's do this song now. You don't need to really rehearse it, let's just do it, you know, because they're on the road so much now. Look how big Glorious Sons is around the world, like they're huge, right? So Anyway, so that was my recommendations for an artist that a band that wants to become something.
Well, it's a big question, and I think you gave quite a lot of information for people to absorb, and just also from a venue owner's perspective, which is why I think I want to ask you that, because not a lot of people hear from the venue owners themselves.
Yeah, it's easier now. I think it is easier now for a band to get out there, to get known, because of the internet now, like the Spotifys and the YouTubes and all that stuff. Because before, you would send in a demo CD or a demo tape or something, and you didn't know the band, what they looked like or anything like that, and you'd listen, but it's not a real true indication of what the band, who they are, or whatever they play. Nowadays, you can
see everything.
Do it all electronically and press send, and away you go, right?
And you're able to not only do that, but also have the possibility of getting massive exposure from platforms like Spotify. Like Cleopatra is the ultimate example that I always go back to, because they went from a small two-piece band from little Coburg, Ontario, and next thing you know, they're touring all over Europe, UK, selling out venues, and
yeah, they're fantastic kids. I'm hoping to get them here this year, or get them here if they're not too big by then. So we never know, right? Yeah. In saying that, there's, like I said, the well is so deep. Just even in Durham region, you can count. I would take all my fingers and toes just to count all the bands that have made it and done well and toured around the world, and all the bands that used to be touring the world that the artists still live in town. It's just, Will McGurk has done some pieces on that, and he always says the well is deep. We've had interviews with every radio station you can think of and all that stuff, and it's just like Oshawa, if you really dig into the history of all the bands that have actually emerged from Oshawa, it's incredible. It really is.
It really is. Ed, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your construction day to sit down with me and just have a conversation about a bunch of different stuff. I'm excited to see what's to come for the venue, as all of us are. Any final words, anything you want to shout out, promote?
No, I think I'd like to thank the Saco Group and their community in Oshawa for believing in my wife and I, and the whole music hall community of all the volunteers and all that, of everybody that has helped us out here. We couldn't have done it. It's not, you and I are sitting here having a conversation, and you and I have done many, many nights, and, even Hayden holding the camera over there has done a lot of sweat, blood, and tears kind of thing. We're in here at 40 degrees, and today my breath is probably showing on camera. It's freezing in here. I can't wait till the interview to be over just so I can warm up. But, I mean, we all do it because, we want to get the word out there that we're coming back with a vengeance, and hopefully Oshawa will be put back on the map with a new venue, and, it's going to work out for everybody.
It's going to work out for everybody. All right, guys, thanks for checking out this episode. Thank you to Anchor for sponsoring this episode. I'll be back next Friday with a new episode. Take it easy. Peace.